back. Tuesday, November 29th. Welcome to the Just Baseball Show. I'm Peter Apple. That's Aram Layton. And guess what's also back, Aram? We're playing general manager again. I remember last offseason, MLB, we got locked out and we had to do all these different playing general managers, but it actually was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
A lot of our listeners liked it. Also, listeners of the Just Baseball Show, hope you had a happy Thanksgiving. Aram, how was your Thanksgiving before we talk about the Seattle Mariners?
Yeah, it was great, man. It was good to be home. Got to see my grandparents. Got to enjoy some football. Pretty state of the art, normal Thanksgiving, which is exactly what I wanted. And I know you did a lot of the same. So how was the West Coast side? Good.
It was great. It was good to be back. Lost some football bets on Thanksgiving. Nothing more Thanksgiving than that. But didn't lose all of them. So, there's a win there. I did the classic, you go out on the town Wednesday night.
Oh, I did that. And I'm still recovering.
Yeah, I'm still exhausted. So if our brain cells aren't fully intact here for this episode on the Mariners, forgive us. It is Tuesday of next week and we are it's Monday. So we didn't have a full time to recoup, but
I need a full week nowadays. I think after like a long night out, it takes me a full week to recover.
And I know our older listeners are listening to this being like, they're complaining at 24 years old.
Yeah.
Shut the hell up.
Yes.
So just listeners, we are going to be doing general manager episodes for about the next month. There are a couple of free agent things that we have to go over, but I think we're going to save that more for the Friday episode when it's Jack, Aram, and I to kind of go over everything that's happened because there's only been a few moves here and there. But let's just get straight into the Mariners or anything that we have to cover beforehand.
Yeah, I think we'll just mention Abreu real quick, and then we'll get into the Mariners. We'll talk more about the Abreu fit, I think, on Friday. But I think just quickly discussing that signing. That's a guy that we would probably have sent. Well, you texted me before we started, by the way. You're like, who's a great fit? Brad Boxberger. Because for those who did listen to the GM episode that got us through the lockout, as you mentioned last year, there were certain candidates that we shoved to every team, and Brad Boxberger was one of them. I think Jose Abreu would have been a very popular guy for us to move around with the universal DH, and he's still competent at first base. So any team that needs a veteran hitter, he's in that price range where we could have maybe justified him for a small market team, and a large market team would also be interested in him as well because he's still very good. Houston Astros sign him. It's a perfect spot for him. And you said it on Twitter. You're like, let's cancel the 2023 season, basically. Obviously, we said the same thing in the past about the Dodgers, but your point stands. Like, the best team just got a lot better because they didn't get anything from first base really last year at spots with how bad Yuli Gurriel really was. This is a really good addition to an already really good team.
Yeah, and I was looking at Bob Nightingale's comments, and a couple of people were like, "Oh, we Astros fans, we already won the World Series," and then there's some comments under it. Well, you guys are going to lose Verlander. Are you going to win then? And then another commenter just listed off 5 elite starting pitchers that they could just plug into his place. And then I really thought to myself, that's why I tweeted it after I got kind of depressed. And I thought to myself, we could play general manager for all these different teams, and yet the Astros might just take home the World Series in 2023 with the signing of Jose Abreu. But I like the point that you brought up about Brad Boxberger, because yes, on last year's playing general manager episodes, I gave Brad Boxberger to every single team, kind of as a running gag, but that's kind of the point. It's not the point, but the main point is we are playing general manager for each team. If we sign Dansby Swanson to the Mariners, that doesn't mean that we can't go in as the Atlanta Braves when we play general manager for them and not sign Dansby Swanson. We're trying to do the best job within the parameters of what we think that the Mariners will do.
Yes.
We're not just, oh yeah, you know what? The Mariners have Dylan Moore and JP Crawford at shortstop and second base. We don't like them that much. We're going to give them Carlos Correa and Trey Turner. That's not how we're going to do it. Right.
Because realistically, I would love to ship JP Crawford out of town and get a different shortstop. But as we know, that's something that Jerry Dipoto has said pretty cut and dry. You could look at, whether it's with The Athletic or MLB.com or whatever, there's been a lot of different quotes from him basically saying JP's our guy, JP's our shortstop. And he has to say that because they paid him to be the shortstop. So when we go around the diamond, we pretty much have to lock him in at short. We'll float some ideas potentially. I don't know totally what you have ready to go, but we do have to operate under the assumption that it is a very high probability that they are not going to move JP from short. If anything, they were hoping to sign one of the other shortstops to put at second base, which is crazy. So we're going to base it on, what the reports are, what everybody is saying from the organization, around the organization, so that we can try to make it as close to reality as possible while having some fun with it. And it's funny because we talk about the Astros. The Mariners need to catch the Astros. They're not going to, but that's the goal, right? They finished,
They might.
even though they had a great season.
They might.
16 games to make up. They got 16 games to make up. So that's their focus this offseason. I think they're off to a great start. And without further ado, let's kind of set the stage and get into it.
Let's do it. So what we're going to do in these episodes is we're going to give a quick recap of the 2022 season. We're going to be players that are kind of just set in stone, the leaders of the team. We're going to look at kind of the holes that need to be filled. We're then going to go over some free agent options that make sense, and we're going to end it with some trades. So the Seattle Mariners, like you said, were 16 games back of the Houston Astros. They finished 90-72. The big thing last year was run differential, and it didn't seem to matter because they were, again, a playoff team. Not again a playoff team. This time they were a playoff team. They beat the longest MLB postseason drought. Congrats to the Seattle Mariners. They were really led by Julio Rodriguez. He led them in WAR. He led them in batting average. He led them in OPS. Ty France was also an incredible contributor at first base. Julio Rodriguez in the outfield wins Rookie of the Year. Cal Raleigh comes on strong with 30-plus home runs. Eugenio Suarez with 31 home runs. Jesse Winker was a big disappointment, but again, that trade ended up kind of being the Eugenio Suarez trade because he was all the way worth it in that deal. They traded for Luis Castillo at the deadline, which gave them a deadly 5-man rotation. George Kirby, he could have been Rookie of the Year if Julio Rodriguez didn't exist. He was awesome. And then the bullpen was just unbelievable. Matt Brash had around a 7 ERA in the rotation, but then they decided, we're going to send you down to AAA. Let's really try and focus in on the bullpen. And he was awesome after Paul Sewald, Andres Munoz. But then they traded away Eric Swanson in exchange and lefty minor leaguer in exchange for Teoscar. This offseason. And now when we kind of look at the holes that the Mariners need to fill, because right now center field is locked up for 14 years with Julio Rodriguez. Ty France ain't moving from first base. You'd assume that Eugenio Suarez will be the third baseman, as he should be. Cal Raleigh should be the catcher. Teoscar Hernandez is going to be manning right field. But let me know again, we talked a little about JP Crawford. What do you see the holes that need to be filled for the Seattle Mariners in 2023?
I mean, I think they've got some ground to make up at short, but we could be going back and forth on that all episode. Clearly they value JP at short, and that's where they want him to be. And operating under that assumption, I think second base is a spot where they really need to upgrade. You look at the outfield, they're going to lose Mitch Haniger to free agency, presumably, which is why they made that Teoscar move. I'm a big Mitch Haniger believer. I love him, but at the end of the day, he has not stayed on the field. And Teoscar Hernandez shook off a slow start and really finished strong. He's a stud. He's a guy that's been on the field a little bit more. That's an upgrade, right? So they go and get their guy, Teoscar. The bullpen, they could afford to cut, and we'll get to it. They could afford to give up a quality arm because they have so many others. I think the big spot that they need to add is a corner outfielder. I really don't know if Jesse Winker is going to be back as a Seattle Mariner. We've seen reports of, a little bit of, I would say, turbulence in that relationship. I don't know if he really was the hardest working in the clubhouse by the reports. Ryan DeVish spoke about that from, I believe it was Seattle Times. And he really did kind of break it down. And I think Winker might need a change of scenery. And for the Mariners, they still got Eugenio Suarez out of it. So I could see him maybe heading out of town. I look at their lefty bats, bro. Like, their lefty bats aren't good right now. And I think that's got to be the biggest hole, right? You got Jesse Winker, who struggled. He slugged 344. You got Jared Kelenic. We know the story there. And you got JP Crawford. Those are your three left-handed bats, excluding the switch hitting Cal Raleigh, who I love. I mean, he played through a thumb injury. He is their guy at catcher. Tom Murphy, fine backup. They're good in that spot. They need lefty bats. And I think that's the big focus here. And I think you get that lefty bat through the outfield. I guess we can start there. Are you out on Jesse Winker as a Seattle Mariner, or do you think it's selling low? It's going to be is selling low. I mean, that's a no brainer. $8 million next year. I mean, that's a fair price in this market for a guy that has the track record. And at the end of the day, he got on base at a 344 clip. The defense stunk, but this is still an above average offensive player, especially if you platoon him properly. But I just think they need too much help on the left with a left-handed bat. I'd rather go get somebody else. Do you ship Winker out of town?
I don't think you can, because you're going to get nothing. You're selling at the lowest level possible. And I totally agree with you. There's been turbulence. There's been bad reports out of camp, but I have to give him one more chance, because you said it yourself. The weakness on this team right now is left-handed bats. And also, I want to correct myself. I said that Cal Raleigh hit 30 home runs. He hit 27. It's my bad. I was all obsessed with Eugenio Suarez, but it felt like Cal Raleigh hit 30 home runs. But let's get back to it. The Mariners need these left-handed bats, and I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to hit Jesse Winker 7th next year and have him DH. If he has a problem, right, with training and getting everything ready, just be like, you know what, hit. And if he just then has another bad year, then it's like, all right, you're done. But it was a new addition, new ballpark, new form of teammates. Let him get settled. We've seen guys have down years in their first year with teams.
Yeah.
Maybe it just takes him another season, because we can't forget how good he was with the Reds. He was never good at defense, but as a DH, especially, it'd be a lot different arm if he was a righty, right? It'd be a little bit different, but like, they need the lefty. And right now they don't really have any other options at DH, right? I mean, you could go with Tom Murphy, but you could go with Abraham Toro, but I think you just got to go with Jesse Winker at DH at this point, unless you sell him for nothing and then you spend more money in order to get a DH. That's what I'd do with him. Would you just ship him out of town?
It's tough. I think it would depend on how bad it is in the clubhouse, and maybe it's not as bad as I say. And I think that's got to be really the ultimate decider here, because what's interesting is he can't really be worse than he was last year for his standards, because again, he didn't hit much. He still walked a ton and the power was sapped, but he just underwent knee surgery in October and was also scheduled for neck surgery. So both his knee and his neck were plaguing him all year. I can't imagine trying to hit with a bad knee and a bad neck. Maybe that was part of the reason why he was not as into the training and program as maybe some of the other players were with the word around that. But you look at the previous 2 years, or it's a year and a half, where he had 110 games in 2021, 54 games in 2020. He was really darn good. And even before that, in short spurts, he's been great. He's a great offensive piece. But health concerns have been the issue too, right? Like, we always talked about it when he was in Cincinnati. Man, if this guy can stay healthy, he's a force. So you also have the health issue too. They do send Kyle Lewis out of town. They get Cooper Hummel. That was one other thing that we didn't mention to the Diamondbacks. That gets rid of one injury-prone guy. So you do have room, I guess, to have that other injury-prone guy that's going to slide into that DH role. Teams don't want to clog up their DH anymore, right? So I think that's why they sent Lewis out of town. Hummel can catch, play corner outfield. Like, he can do a little bit of everything, and he's a switch hitter. So that's another guy that might end up being a left-handed option for you if he can continue to progress. Here's the funny thing, though. Cooper Hummel is kind of similar to Jesse Winker in regards to he walks a shitload. So I do wonder if they added Hummel thinking, okay, either if it doesn't work with Winker, this is our backup plan, or Winker's expendable. I know Hummel, it's got to all go right for him to be as good as Winker, but he walks a ton and he gives you more value defensively. If he doesn't hit quite as well, it might be more palatable. It's an interesting spot. I'm very curious to see how they navigate Jesse Winker, but I feel like if he was going to get traded, it might have happened by now. And you talk about selling low with a knee and a neck surgery, they might be selling for nothing. So
that's what I'm saying. What are you going to get, a bag of nails?
Yeah, I think you hold on. I do agree. I think you hold on.
Like the Moneyball meme. It's like, we need soda.
Yeah, like literally, like that's all they're going to get.
Yeah. It's
and he's too good.
He's too so much upside, right? If he just goes to the gym 3 days a week, we could be looking at an all-star.
And if these surgeries were like issues that were nagging him, right? Like that, then we could be looking at a dude. And here's the thing, he just turned 29. Like, he's not on the other side. And he played 118 games in left field. Split him more up with DH, protect him a little bit more.
Platoon him.
I think you sold me. I agree. I'm going to hold on to Jesse Winker here.
Okay, let's move over to another corner outfielder who I'm just really excited to pick your brain about this guy. Because I think you've been following him since he was 4 years old, I think, maybe 5, Jared Kelenic. I mean, Kelenic, oh man, he was bad. I mean, 1/141, 221, 313 last year, but just so much freaking potential, dude. I mean, so athletic. I think at his peak, he could be a 25 guy who hits 290 and plays good corner, but he just hasn't shown anything yet, but he's shown flashes. That's why it's like, you can't give up on him, right? You just can't.
It's crazy, man, because he's still just 23. And like,
yeah, 23,
just turned 23, right? Like he's not even like, he's 22 all season. He got rushed to the big leagues, struggled, and it kind of just set this spiral. And we've spent so much time talking about Kelenic, and I think it's gotten to the point now where people are just kind of counting him out. And it's tough because if you're a team like the Mariners, you're trying to win now. You're trying to get better now, right? You stalled out in the first series of the playoffs and offensively, and that kind of did you in. You're looking to upgrade any way you can offensively, but 141, 221, 313 slash line this year in 54 big league games is abysmal. But what does he do in AAA? Again, continues to mash. And people can say, okay, that's a quadruple A guy. I'm not ready to say that. The power is more impressive, I think, than people think. The exit velos are really impressive. He crushes fastballs. Breaking balls seem to be the issue. Yeah. And that's something that's concerning because some guys just never figure that out. I think you got to try again, right? But how? Are you starting him in the big leagues? Like, are you starting him in AAA again next year after debuting in 2021, right? Like, this is going to be now his third year of being in AAA. And kind of back and forth. Like, how do you handle that? And that's something that is beyond me, because I think if you're the Mariners and you're serious about, trying to get better and catch the reigning champs, can you seriously say you're putting your best foot forward with Jared Kelenic as the opening day corner outfielder, presumably in left?
Jerry Layton, arm Dipoto, nut up. This is our job right now. We're in November. We're supposed to decide if Jared Kelenic's going to play left field for the Mariners. That's our job here. The listeners don't want it to be up in the air. We took over this team for this half hour, 45 minutes, hour episode. It's probably going to be hour 15 because when Arm and I start talking, we start talking. Yeah. But that's the reality of the situation here. You got to decide. And you know what? It's so hard. I would start him in left. I would.
Wow.
I would. It's now or never. It's not even now or never. Jacob deGrom was good at 26. I know it's a pitcher. I know it's a different story. And I'm not comparing those two, but I mean, Jared Kelenic was one of the top prospects in the entire sport. This guy has so much talent. But I would start him in left field because I don't think if he flames out, I think this Mariners team is so talented in so many other areas that you can risk that, right?
Okay.
And then there's so much upside.
But you just said run it back at DH, and we just ran it back with Jared Kelenic. How are we getting better?
Well, we're going to make some moves. We're going to, this episode ain't over yet. We're like 20 minutes into like a 45-minute episode, right? We ain't done yet.
I'm going to say if we're bringing back Winker, I think you've got to have you got to go get an outfielder. Maybe you see how Kelenic does in the spring and start him
outfielder.
Start him in AAA. I want to go get Conforto. Yeah. And I've seen reports of them being linked together. The Mariners are interested. Conforto is from the Seattle area. That's where he went to high school. And I just want a consistent left-handed bat. And I know he is.
Conforto's been so consistent.
Yeah. Well, I think he will be consistent. I think he will. You could go Benny, but I think Conforto gives you more upside. And I think when Conforto's healthy, he's going to just be that 280, 20 to 25 homers, maybe a little bit more, play a decent defense in a corner, and just get on base at a good clip like that. They need that. And you look at what they did this year, right? They got on base really well. They slugged. I think they were top 10 in ISO. But just in terms of hits, like fuck the advanced stats, just cumulative hits. They were bottom 5 in Major League Baseball. And I know that's a very baseline stat. It's the object of the game, though. And, I look at that for offenses that are streaky and stall out. It's sometimes the offenses that just struggle to put the ball in play and just accumulate hits. And that seemed like it was exactly what happened as they ran into the buzzsaw that was the Astros. I want guys to just put bat on ball. And I think Conforto, he's going to strike out a little bit, but he's going to keep it in the low 20s and he's going to put bat on ball. And I think Conforto or Benintendi, who's even the higher echelon of that bat to ball guy, seems like a perfect fit. I don't see Benintendi going coast to coast. You never know. Money talks. And the way they've been interested in Adam Frazier seems like the poor man's Benintendi, right? Like they had Adam Frazier out there. Benintendi's way better. That could be another really solid outfield bat for you. It's going to be a 1-year deal with Conforto. It'll probably be a multiple year deal cheaper for Benny. I think a 1 year for Conforto while you wait and see what Kelenich's doing is perfect. Because if Kelenic figures it out, okay, Conforto's going to hit free agency next year anyways, because that's what him and his agent want. And that way you're not blocking Kelenic, but you have an insurance policy in case this guy freaking stinks again.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying too. It's just, it almost feels like you're giving up on him a little bit though, right?
I just don't think he's earned the opening day job.
I think that's fine. I think that's fair. But it's almost like these guys that are so highly touted, it's like you have to see what you got sooner than later.
Like he's got chances.
Yeah, he has. You're right.
He's had a lot of chances.
Point, the chances at 21, 22 years old. Like, this is my common phrase. Can we give the man a second?
We gave him some seconds.
We did.
He's got some seconds.
Yeah, we gave him some seconds.
Like, all right. I want to see him in AAA.
Okay. What if he's going to hit again? And then what do you do? What if he hits 300 in AAA again?
Then you see where he fits in, right? How is Winker looking? How is Conforto looking? Is he healthy? Like he's your insurance plan to two guys that need insurance policies in Winker and Conforto, who, we haven't seen Conforto in a while. I think he's going to be fine. And I think he's going to be consistent, but at the end of the day, we haven't seen him. Winker coming off of 2 pretty crazy surgeries. I think that might be the way to approach it. And of course, you still have that revolving DH corner outfield type of role that those two guys could be in. I think that's what you got to do. Because if you go into the season with Kelenic as your everyday guy and you ignore and don't upgrade, you just left yourself exposed to, what if Kelenic sucks? What if he continues to not put it together? I mean, how are they going to answer that? Now it's early in the season. Nobody's available. Teams aren't looking to trade their guys. Free agency's done. How are you upgrading? You're hoping Cooper Hummel steps in, I guess.
Could be nice. No, but I think you're right on there. And I like how we're kind of weaving free agent decisions kind of into these holes, how we're going to fit them instead of doing it piece by piece, because I think that makes a lot more sense. I think we can sign Michael Conforto. I think that makes sense because that's an upside play, right? It's like if Michael Conforto was a little bit injured, all right, now you have Kelenic. If Conforto's great, but Winker sucks, you can maybe then slot, because it's not like Teoscar is an all-world defender. I mean, you could maybe put Conforto in right, put Kelenic in left, do a lot of DHing with Teoscar, kind of move it around, because it's also not like Kelenic has proved to be an amazing left fielder either.
No, and I think that's the way these teams kind of want to do the DH, role is, unless you have a pure masher, right? Like, like a prime Nelly Cruz. You don't want to get him hurt. Or Stanton. You can rotate that DH and use it as kind of a way to keep guys healthy. And I'm sure they're going to want to do that with Conforto and Winker. I think you add Conforto, and again, you have Hummel as a backup plan as well. You're going to the season is so long and so many guys get hurt and things happen and whatever, that you're going to be happy you have the depth. That seems to be always the case. And I'm sure Kelenic will get his chances. But you kind of want that to be, okay, we got Kelenic, let's give him a shot, instead of like, please Kelenic, please hit. Because then at that point you're in trouble.
So Dylan Moore walks.
I love Dylan Moore.
I mean,
that's my shitty favorite player.
But, all right, that's fine. That's fine by me. I love favorite shitty players, but he is 30, and he slugged 385, but OBP of 368. I mean, this is
great bench player. Great bench player.
This is not some schmuck, but at the same time, I don't think you can go into next year if your plan is to catch the Astros with him at second base.
No,
I had an idea.
I wonder if it's the same idea I have. Let's hear it.
Ezequiel Tovar is coming up for the Rockies.
Okay, this wasn't my idea, but continue.
Ezequiel Tovar is coming up for the Rockies, which you love, and you've convinced me because I went back and I watched. I mean, he looks so good. But this is not a Rockies episode. But the reason I bring him up, Brendan Rodgers is hitting arbitration. Is that a player? He won't be that expensive. Remember, this is a 92 WRC plus guy in Colorado. This is not a guy who's going to, make major headlines where we're going to have an episode talking about Brendan Rodgers possibly to the Mariners. But could he use a change of scenery? And I know that's kind of a weird thing to say because you're like, Peter, change of scenery from Colorado? It's pretty nice to hit there. And you're going to Seattle where it's not nice to
hit. Way worse to hit.
Yeah. Way worse to hit there. But remember, Brendan Rodgers was a really, really good player. And also defensively, great in the infield. Would it make sense to possibly make a move for Brendan Rodgers? Because we could talk about them signing the big-time shortstops. We could talk about them signing Jean Segura, bringing him back to Seattle.
That's what I wanted.
And we could talk about that. But I'm thinking, what would it cost for a 26-year-old Brendan Rodgers? Like, would it cost, Taylor Dollard? Or is that even too much for a guy like Brendan Rodgers? Like, I don't think it would be that expensive. I think you might be buying a little bit low, and he could end up being a pretty solid player. But it doesn't solve the left-handed bat. But if we already signed Michael Conforto, maybe that shoulders it a little bit. I was looking at that, thinking to myself, I kind of like Brendan Rodgers on the Mariners.
Huh. It's funny because he was so good. And he's been a guy that I will not really give up on until he's done playing baseball.
Me too. I like
one of those guys. I wonder if the Rockies are in the same camp. I do wonder because I like him as a fit. I really do. And I think it's either an opportunity for them to, cut their ties and say, okay, Tovar's our shortstop of the future. They've got other guys in the middle infield that are going to be coming up very soon, but they're probably still a couple years off. The Rockies are a couple
years off.
Yeah. I'm looking at their lineup right now, like what it's expected to be. And again, I know this is a Mariners episode, but I don't know who they would plug in if they did trade Brendan Rodgers. That's the only issue, unless they go and sign somebody. I know they're like interested in spending money on Nimmo and whoever. So if they want to go sign Jean Segura themselves, I mean, maybe that happens. But I think they could put together a pretty easy package that would get the Rockies interested because the Mariners do just really develop arms well. And I know they've traded a lot of them, but they could trade a couple decent arms and I think go get a Rodgers, and he's still 26. It's just, do you want another struggling, like, hope he figures it out guy in the mix here?
Yeah, I guess you're right. I just thought cheap buy low option.
I like the idea. I like for another team. If we're talking like Marlins, I'm all the hell in. If we're talking like some other teams, I just think with what they are dealing with of like rolling the dice, I kind of want a sure thing. I do really like that idea though. I did not think you were going there at all.
Right? Just kind of outside the box thinking. But let's talk about Jean Segura because I think that was on your mind too, because traveling back to Seattle. You like that fit?
He's so cool. That's exactly where I was at. So Segura, he'll probably be what? Let's say it's a 3-year deal, which I think is, if you offer him 3 years, I think you can get him. The option was declined at 19 over 1 year. So you figure if he makes anywhere from 13 to 15 a year over 3 years, 3 years, 45, 50 million, like
exactly.
I'll do that in 2 seconds. I think this guy's going to age well. He's still stealing bags. He plays good defense at second. If Eugenio Suarez goes down, he can play third. He got some versatility there. I really like the bat. He's consistent. He's a great clubhouse guy. It seems like it's a perfect like reunion. And that's a huge upgrade up the middle in terms of offensive production. I would love to see Gene back in Seattle. I'm sure that's a popular target for them. It's really hard to say no to that, right? Like I would think we'd almost have to float some other options because that seems like such an obvious no-brainer for them. It's affordable and it's an upgrade, right away. And again, a bat to ball guy that I think fits perfectly.
I'm in. I mean, if it makes so much sense, we could just come up with other options, or we could just sign him because that makes all the sense in the world. Like, I love the reunion aspect. I love the veteran presence. That's the only just hole that I wanted to fill in what you were saying because you laid it out perfectly. Just like the Mariners are a young team. Gene Segura just went to a World Series. Like, now he's officially been there. Like, I would love Gene Segura on the Mariners. Like, you're not relying on Gene Segura to hit third. You're relying on Gene Segura to maybe hit sixth, seventh in the lineup.
Yeah.
And as a sixth, seventh guy, love that fit. To your point, he's still playing fine defense. He's not this 36-year-old that you're just kind of tossing like a Michael Brantley maybe that you hope he hits, but you're not really relying on defense. Like, no, Gene Segura can still play a good second base. And Mariners fans are probably like, well, what about we're going to get Correa, Dansby, or Trey? And it's like, I don't think you will, because the Mariners signed J.P. Crawford to be their shortstop. Jerry Dipoto, whether Mariners fans like it or not, I understand if you don't. I wouldn't either. They signed him to be the shortstop next year. That's what the point was. They still believe in him. Remember, if we're talking about Brendan Rodgers kind of being a top prospect and maybe finding something, it's not like J.P. Crawford wasn't. I think J.P. Crawford was even more highly touted.
And JP's only like a year older. He's only like a year older.
Like, I think they're going to roll with him. I think
and he's owed, he's owed 10, 20, 30, $41 million over the next 4 years. So they have no choice. Like they have to hope that it just continues to trend in the right direction, which I wouldn't even say continues. He started hot and really fell off. They have to hope that 28-year-old now going into this next year, J.P. Crawford kind of figures it out and can be a low 700s OPS guy or whatever like that. I think they kind of locked themselves in on that, but I don't see them, like you said, I don't see them going 300 million for a middle infielder. I think it makes sense to go shorter term, go Gene Segura. If there's another option there, though, there's not that many other second basemen. I talked about shortstops moving there. That's the only like second baseman, I feel like, that you can really go out and get and instantly upgrades your offense. Like, looking at the rest of it, you know they're not really going to spend. I don't think they're going to spend massively. They don't need a first baseman DH type, as we talked about. Ty France is their guy. I've got one other outfield bat that I don't think he's technically been posted yet, but Masataka Yoshida could be a really good option, because we talked about him a couple episodes ago. And I talked about how I really like how compact his swing is, how short he is to the ball. And I think that's going to translate to a plus hit tool at the big league level, stateside.
Yeah.
If he's that guy, right? He's bat to ball. He's got sneaky power. They've never been afraid of going for those international free agents in the past. Worked out pretty well with Ichiro. And they've done it other times since. I think Yoshida could be a good upside play as well. If they want a multi-year deal instead of Conforto, Yoshida could be an awesome option for them.
Another option that I want to go over, and I talked about this in my article, which is still live on justbaseball.com, 25 predictions that will definitely come true. Will they all come true? We'll see. All right. We signed Gene Segura. We sent out a couple offer letters. We signed Gene Segura to a 3-year, $45 million deal. Welcome to the Seattle Mariners. Welcome back, Gene Segura. We gave Michael Conforto a 1-year deal. And we gave the Japanese outfielder a 3-year deal. Both declined. They don't want us. They don't want us. Michael Conforto wants 2 years. We're not willing to do that. And Yoshida wants 4 years. What about packaging Emerson Hancock and pieces for Dalton Varsho? I love that fit for the Mariners.
I love it for the Mariners.
He can play a bunch of different positions. And the reason why we're focusing on the offense is because this team finished 14th in OPS in baseball and 27th in average, 16th in on base. Their bullpen was elite, and their starting pitching, especially when they added Luis Castillo, hard to get much better. So we're not going to be adding much. And they still have a plethora of arms down in their system. We talked about Taylor Dollard. We talked about Emerson Hancock, and they still have more guys on the way. Is Emerson Hancock and maybe a piece or two for Dalton Varsho? Let's say we can't sign Conforto. Conforto wants too much. Yoshida wants too much. Is that a better option here? Because I would prefer Varsho to any of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I would too. Here's the weird thing is that the Mariners and the Diamondbacks just swapped just made a trade for a catcher outfielder athlete weirdo.
That just means they have him on speed dial.
And Cooper Hummel. Obviously Varsho's way better. But I just imagine if they just made that Hummel deal for their catcher outfielder. I don't know if the D-backs will trade Varsho.
We're playing on our feet here. We just offered Conforto and Yoshida deals. They said no, and we already have them on.
The D-backs are turning this shit down. They're turning that shit down.
Are they turning down Emerson, Hancock, and pieces for Varsho?
Hancock really struggled this year.
Hmm.
And I think they really like Varsho. I think the odd man out there is if anyone, is McCarthy. Varsho's a stud, as you know.
Stud. Oh my God, I love him. That's why I want him on the Mariners.
I love the idea. It was a great try. Diamondbacks said no.
Interesting. So are we giving Conforto the 2-year deal then?
Would you go? I think Conforto wants one. So would you go high AAV on Conforto, or would you roll the dice on like a 5-year deal for Yoshida?
5-year deal.
Let me read you Masataka Yoshida's.
5 years. And Seiya got 4.
Is that what Seiya got?
I thought he got 4. I mean, I don't.
So Masataka Yoshida last year, 335, 447, 561 slash line, 80 walks, 41 strikeouts, 21 homers.
How old is he? 25?
28. 29, just turned 29. 5 years is tough.
He just had his prime. That was his best season he's ever going to have, Aram.
That might be. It actually was his best year. He might have another one.
He might. Comes over to America and immediately. 5 years is a lot. It's a lot of money. It's going to be what, $100 million? How much are you going to pay him?
Suzuki got 5 years, 85.
Okay, so you're not going to give him 100. That was stupid of me. You're probably going to give him
65,
maybe 11 a year, 55. Yeah.
5 years. Let's say 5 years, 60.
12 a year. I'm going to counter with 4 for 48.
He's going to tell you to kick rocks.
How is he going to tell me to kick rocks? He's 29, dude. He's 29. What do you expect?
I actually have no idea. I was reading a piece in The Athletic. I just pulled it up. This is by Will Salmon. Masataka Yoshida evokes superstar comparisons, but reservations remain.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going back to Conforto. Yoshida.
I think Conforto, because
that was too much. He got upset.
Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are, Masataka? Fair. He was getting bid up, which I think is going to happen. That's the thing. Is like Yoshida is going to get bid up. You have Conforto, who is going to have a plethora of 1-year offers. But how about the team that is right by where he grew up for that 1 year? Get back to who you were, prove yourself in an area where you're comfortable. I think you go, we give Yoshida the offer. He turns us down because he gets outbid, or we get outbid by the Yankees. Yankees come in at $400 million and don't sign Judge. So that's it. It's over. I think the 1 year to Conforto, because again, if I'm not swearing off Kelenic, but I'm also not just giving him the job. I'm not giving him the job.
If you sign Yoshida, 5-year deal.
No, he's a little bit more blocked.
Left fielder. That's your left fielder. Yeah. So I think that's perfect because you got Kelenic there. He's gonna hit 320 in AAA again. And then I think we signed Conforto. We give him 1 year, $18 million. 1 year, 18 mil.
Wait, I might change your mind real quick. I'm reading this article.
Oh, no.
Adam Jones, who plays out there in Japan.
Yeah.
He called Yoshida the Japanese Juan Soto.
I mean,
there's the bat to ball. Jeez. But no. We're going Conforto. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Except Juan Soto is younger than Adley Rutschman, and Yoshida is older than
washed. He's absolutely washed. So we go 1 year Conforto, bring him home. We go 3 years to Segura.
45 mil to Segura. You think 1 year, 18 million for Conforto is fair?
I think even less.
You think
15,
less?
15.
We'll say 16.5.
Yeah.
Cut it right down the middle.
All right.
So we just signed. So right now, the starting lineup is Julio Rodriguez in center, Ty France at first, Suarez at third, Raleigh at catcher, Teoscar in right, Winker at DH, Gene Segura at second base, JP Crawford at shortstop, Michael Conforto in left field. That's a fucking good team.
It's a much better team, man.
It's a pretty good team. That's like
a good
where's the
team.
weakness? JP Crawford.
Literally JP Crawford. Yes. Yes. And I like the
Curry.
bench. I love Dylan Moore is like a perfect bench player. Plays all over. 21 bases back-to-back years.
You got Toro. You got Murphy.
Power. Toro, Murphy.
I
think Trammell is a fine left-handed bat off the bench as well. We got to go to the rotation now, which is pretty solid. Like, there's 4 guys locked in, which is Castillo, Gilbert, Ray, Kirby.
Yep.
Brash is learning a cutter. And if Matt Brash has so the thing with Matt Brash, you talked about the starter reliever discrepancy. I remember when I showed you guys the Matt Brash slider like a year and a half ago. And yeah, it was like nauseatingly gross. And I was like, this is going to become a pitching ninja favorite. And it literally did. But when a pitch moves that much, it's hard to locate for a strike. So he needed another secondary pitch that he could trust, that he could, land for a strike that isn't just the fastball. If he can find this cutter, this could really open up a lot for him. And I really want to see him get a shot as a starter. Because worst case scenario, okay, moving back to the bullpen, he's fine. But that being said, are you okay with Marco Gonzalez as your 6th starter? I think I am. Like, if it doesn't work for Matt Brash with the bullpen and Chris Flexen's still there, are we trading Chris Flexen? Or are we riding with Chris Flexen?
I think we just keep Chris Flexen. Like, you lost Swanson in the pen, and Flexen came in and was kind of decent in the bullpen.
I don't get the trade talks with Flexen. Like, again, like I was talking about with the outfield.
Like, depending on
teams
what they could get.
I'm not shopping him though, because I understand like he could be a rotation piece for somebody else, but your pitching will go so quickly. Like, a couple of guys go down, and then all of a sudden you're starting Justin Nicolino or something like that, right? Or all of a sudden or you're starting Justice Sheffield. Like, it goes all of a sudden you can go from deep to thin quite quickly.
Yes.
I like having those insurance policies. I think that's perfectly fine, right? Like, you try Brash as a starter, start Flexen in the bullpen. Is Marco Gonzalez in the bullpen? Like, he can't be a reliever. That's the only problem, right? And they don't have lefty relievers. That's the biggest issue. Justice Sheffield's their only lefty reliever.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think at this point with them, you keep Marco Gonzalez as the 5. Like, he had a 4.13 ERA last year. He gives you a chance to win every day. And that's what you kind of need with a 5. Like, you don't expect your 5 to be elite, especially when your 4 is George Kirby, who at times looked like an ace in the playoffs. Robbie Ray, who has a 3 starter, like, he had 212 strikeouts.
Yeah.
Like, he was like at least on a strikeout base, 3.71 ERA. Like, if he could just give you a 3.7 ERA next year with 200 plus strikeouts, I mean, that's a 3. That's a good 3. And then you have Gilbert, who at times looks like an ace, and you have Castillo, who is a legit ace. So I think this rotation is more than fine. I think you keep Marco Gonzalez in the 5, and you don't need to do anything. And then you have Flexen if anything.
So the only way I trade Flexen is if I get a lefty reliever I really like.
Exactly. No, literally exactly. Because I don't want to trade Flexen. I don't think there's any reason to unless someone overpays for him, unless you're getting down to the wire here and you have a desperate team that needs starting pitching so badly. Maybe in spring training, a guy goes down. It's like, oh, we need Chris Flexen, and they overpay.
Which happens.
Which happens all the time.
It happened with the Marlins. Again, like they panicked. Dylan Floro went down, and they ended up overpaying for Cole Sulser and Tanner Scott, and they gave up. Yeah, gave up a lot. So,
and the Mariners could cash in on that, but I wouldn't say, all right, send an email out to all the GMs like as Arm DePoto and Jerry Apple. We're not going to be sending out emails to GMs.
Okay, anyone want to take this guy?
No.
Yeah, no. I and we kind of talked about how like that with Teoscar, it felt like he was being shopped for so long that it almost felt like he was just so readily available for so long that it almost impacted his value a little bit. There could be a trade partner similar to that Teoscar deal where it's like 2 teams that just match up really well. Swanson, instead of a better prospect, was exactly what the Jays wanted, right? They wanted somebody that can plug right into their bullpen. So I would say try to trade Flexen for a lefty reliever. If that's not there, then kind of stand pat. But do you need to sign a lefty reliever? Like, do they go get one? Because they legitimately don't have one. I don't know if it matters if all your righties are darn disgusting,
So we have some money to play with. It's not like this. We're dealing with a poor Mariners. It's not like this is the episode for the Pittsburgh Pirates. With all due respect to the Pittsburgh Pirates, this isn't the Pittsburgh Pirates. Like, we have some money. All we did was give Gene Segura a 3-year, $45 million deal and Michael Conforto a 1-year, $16.5. Like, they have money to play with. And what's wrong with signing Taylor Rogers? What's wrong with signing Andrew Chafin? What's wrong with signing Matt Moore? Like, there are some good left-handed relievers out there that won't be that expensive. Like, I would love to add Andrew Chafin. I would love to add Matt Moore. I mean, do I want to add Taylor Rogers after that season? Maybe you can get it for cheap and you could fix something with him.
The way the Mariners have unlocked their relievers,
exactly,
like the way the Astros have, like certain teams just have that recipe.
Maybe Taylor Rogers is the guy then. Unlock him again.
Unlock Taylor, get him back to where he needs to be, because he still showed like it was a rough year and he still showed flashes of dominance, right? Like, he still had those stretches where he was really good. And I think he finished the year with a few solid outings. So I would say that's where you spend a little bit extra, because we didn't end up going big up the middle, with shortstop or second base or whatever. We got, spent a little bit, didn't go crazy on the outfield. And I think you go get somebody here that, if Taylor Rogers is back to his form, this is the best bullpen in baseball, maybe them and the Astros. And that's it. Like, I don't know if there's another bullpen and maybe the Guardians, but I mean, they're tier 1 bullpen. No doubt about it. They already are. Like, this might make them the best bullpen in baseball.
I agree.
If Rogers can be there.
Like, 2022 traditional stats. If you're a Mariners fan being like, Taylor Rogers, guys, are you kidding me? Yeah. He had, in 64 innings, he had a 4.76 ERA. He had 10 blown saves.
Holy shit.
But he had 4 holds. Our best one.
He hit 12 batters.
Yeah. But look at his advanced stats for a little bit. He had almost 12 strikeouts per 9, which is not an advanced stat, but it's still 12 strikeouts per 9, 3.32 FIP, 3.26 xFIP, 4.11 xERA. So not nearly as bad as the production. I like it. I really like
the track record. Again, this isn't us talking about some guy who stunk for 10 years, right? He's been good. The underlying stats point towards him still being good. He just hit some walls and hit some snags in a year where he was traded and had a lot going on. I think this is the signing too. I don't know what he costs. Relievers are impossible. Sometimes I see it and I'm like, that's it. And then sometimes I see it and I'm like, that much?
Robert Flora's got 5 years.
Correct.
So we're giving him a 5-year deal.
8.
Yeah.
Like what? 2-year deal? I think a 2-year deal for Rogers is fine.
More than
32
fair.
years old. Yeah.
So let's say
2 years,
we'll
20,
Taylor Rogers.
25.
Oh, that's a lot. I was going to say 2 years, 18.
Call it 2 years, 20.
2 years, 20. So we just gave 2 years, $20 million to Taylor Rogers. As to add a lefty reliever to this bullpen. I don't think you have to trade Flexen unless someone overvalues him, which I don't think a lot of teams will. His advanced stats don't look that great. Just when you watch him, it's not like he's, no offense, anything.
He's just
special.
Painfully average.
Yeah, he's fine. Yeah, he gets outs. He's a get outs guy, which I appreciate. But I'm not trading him. I'm doing Marco in my 5, and I'm not going to get another starter. You don't need it. But we signed Gene Segura to a 3-year deal. We signed Michael Conforto to a 2-year deal or 1-year deal, 16.5. Then we signed Taylor Rogers. There's not much else that we need to do here. This team is already a 90-win team, and I think we just added 3 or 4 wins to this team.
At least, and they can add more if some of their guys take that leap, right? If Matt Brash takes that leap, if Kirby takes that leap, Gilbert continues to take that leap, this whole team will get better. I have one interesting trade partner though that I have to float.
Okay.
The Baltimore Orioles could use a Chris Flexen, and they have a lot of relievers, including several lefties. Nick Vespi is a guy that a lot of people like and just hasn't quite put it all together. That could be an intriguing option.
Got good stuff.
Sionel Perez might be untouchable with how disgusting he was last year. And they've also got Keegan Aiken. That could be a trade partner. We don't have to craft one up, but that could be a trade partner for Chris Flexen down the line, just to like keep your eyes peeled, because they need him. We'll get to the Orioles rotation when we do the Orioles GM episode, but good God, they could use a Chris Flexen ASAP. So that could be a trade partner as well. One of the few teams that like matches up really well with a reliever for a starter kind of swap.
I think it's a very good idea. Okay, so we're done. Julio Rodriguez at center, Ty France at first, Suarez at third, Raleigh at catcher, Teoscar in right, Winker at DH, Conforto in left, Gene Segura. We signed to a $45 million deal. We signed Michael Conforto to a 1-year, $16.5 million deal. We have JP Crawford. And then on the bench, we're going with Murphy, Toro, Haggerty.
I want to see Hummel get a shot.
Hummel and Kelenic on the bench.
Yeah.
Probably gonna have to cut one of them, but we'll figure that out later.
Figure it out in spring training. I got to see him.
Luis Castillo, Gilbert, Robbie Ray, George Kirby, Marco Gonzalez. That's our 5 in the rotation. So we're going with Paul Seawood.
Are we giving Brash a shot first as a starter, or are we letting spring training to determine that?
We'll do a little.
We'll go with Marco / Matt Brash. Compete.
Exactly, or Chris Flexen. Who wins the job? Who wants
three guys? Three guys compete. Good organizations breed competition.
Exactly, and we're a good organization. Yeah. Paul Seawold, Munoz, Diego Castillo. Right now, we're signing Taylor Rogers to a 2-year, $20 million deal. We still got Penn Murphy. We still got Festa. Again, we have Flexen and Justice Sheffield. It's a fucking good team.
It's a good team.
That
team can win 94, 95 games.
For all those watching on YouTube, we're shaking our hands.
We did it. I think we did it. I think they still don't win the division. They should. It'll be like, they'd win any other division. And I think that, look, here's the thing too. Julio Rodriguez is going to get better. So believe it or not, and he was hurt. He missed time this year. He didn't start, phenomenally compared to how he finished. Like, this is a guy that's only going to get better. So they're going to gain a lot of wins just by the maturation of a lot of their young pieces.
I also think Ty France bounces back.
Yeah, he was extremely disappointing in the second half.
Banged up too. And adding Teoscar Hernandez, we didn't do that. They did that for themselves.
They did it. Yeah, I was going to say, thank you, Jerry. This was one of the easier playing GM episodes. We didn't have to do that much. And I think we've seen enough from Ty France to expect him to be closer to 2021 Ty France than 2022. Although you take the whole season, only a 3 WRC plus difference. It was just how much he struggled, in the back half of the year. So I think he's going to bounce back and have a really nice season. I think it's a little bit approach dependent too, if he walks a bit more, but if all those guys take a little bit of a jump, and even if Kelenic doesn't pan out, I think this team is set up to be successful either way. And they're not dependent on the success of Winker and Kelenic, but they are able to fit those guys in if they are performing. And I think that's the perfect spot to be in if you're the Mariners.
Exactly. A couple house cleaning things. On justbaseball.com, we are churning out articles like nobody's business. You can go find a couple of those. One I just read is top 10 relievers remaining in the 2023 free agent class, which non-tender players could provide a spark. We have a free agent tracker on there. We have top 10 underrated free agents. We have every team's most valuable trade tip. We have the top 50 free agents. We have everything under the sun that you can go find on justbaseball.com. Aram is rocking his Just Baseball hoodie, which is still available on the Just Baseball store. We are running out, so make sure to get yours quickly before they sell out. And the best way to do so, use code DINGER for 20% off. It runs through Wednesday. You're hearing this on Tuesday, so you got 2 days to go get your Just Baseball merch. We are running out of sizes, so make sure that you go grab yours. It's the best way to support this podcast. And another great way to support the podcast, if you could rate and review 5 stars on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you're listening on Apple, please let us know what you're enjoying about the podcast. And also maybe write us a review and let us know which team that you want to see next in the general manager episodes. We're going to be pulling it a lot. I know Aram, initially we were talking like, which team should we do? I was like, you know what, let's just pull it. But you wanted to talk about the Rangers. That might be the next episode with you and Jack, because I know you and Jack especially wanted to talk about them. But we're kind of going to play it on a case-by-case basis. So we're going to keep you wondering.
Yep. Keep you on your toes. Big Cubs week on the prospect side of things.
Wow.
So as you're listening to this, Cubs top 10 prospect list is live at justbaseball.com. As you're listening to this, interview with Matt Mervis will drop tomorrow. And then shortly after, an interview with Pete Crow Armstrong as well. So if you're a Cubs fan or just interested in really good prospects, because both those guys are really, really freaking good prospects, couple fun interviews that I'm looking forward to on the call up, and that top 10 Cubs prospect list live at justbaseball.com.
And with that, thank you, everybody.